Good afternoon, everyone. This is Damien at Team Micro. I hope you're doing good. It's a fine Sunday here in the UK, chucking it down with rain, but hey, nothing new. I want to talk to you guys about something that a lot of people struggle with, and it's this is about where you choose to position your business within the wider marketplace. And it's something that a lot of people don't even really consider, and when they do, they struggle to understand exactly why it's important and how they should go about making the decision about where their company should be positioned. It's really important because this affects every aspect of your marketing. Where you position yourselves affects how you brand yourself, what your pricing strategy is. How your clinic should look, even where it should be located. It is important, and I just want to touch on this today, and maybe help you guys ask yourselves some questions as to what you're doing right now, and if there's a way that you could reposition your company to more effectively reach your target market. In my view, there are 6 key considerations that really come into play when trying to figure out where you want to be, and we'll come on to those in just a moment. But firstly, let me just clarify. Let me clarify a point. Everyone wants to be at the top of the game. They want to be at the top of the market, but there's nothing saying that you can't be on top of your game, but not necessarily occupy a position at the very premium end of the marketplace. And a really good example of that would be, I mean, in the car market, look at Ford Motors. You know, they're not Mercedes. They don't have the gravitas of Mercedes, but they're still a very successful company because they know their market position. I suppose when you look at the fashion industry, you've got so look at trainers, for example, sneakers for you Americans. You know, you've got your Nikes, you've got your Adidas, and so on. And then at the upper end of the market, you've got your Valentinos, your Balenciagas, and so on. It's not that Nike and Adidas are not successful, because we all know that they are. It's just that they position themselves differently. When Balenciaga came into the marketplace, they chose a very definite market position, and everything that they do reflects that market position. So when you're working out how to set up your SMP business or your permanent makeup business, or maybe you're already in business and you're looking at ways that you can reposition yourselves to target your market more effectively, this is something that you really do need to think about because it affects everything that you do. So without further ado, let's look at these 6 key considerations now. So consideration number 1 is the strength of your portfolio. So the longer you've been in business, the bigger your portfolio is going to be. And the more varied that portfolio is going to be. And it's quite likely that the longer you've been in business, the better quality that portfolio is going to be as well. Everyone's results get better over time. Everyone has to start somewhere. But you'll find that the quality of your work now, if you've been in business 4 years, for example, is going to be far better than what it was 4 years ago. So think about how you tackle that, and you really do need to be honest with yourself. If you've got hundreds of before and after photographs of some of the eyebrow work you've done, lips, some of the scalp work you've done, then that's going to put you in a very strong position, and it's going to give you the option to position yourselves at the top end of the market should you choose to. If on the other hand, if you've just set up, and you've only got a very small portfolio, or your portfolio doesn't show a great deal of variety, then you're going to need to consider how that will be perceived by customers, and just make sure that your market positioning fits with that. Otherwise, there's going to be a mismatch. The second consideration is the training that you have received, the training that you've invested in. So if you're running a brand new clinic, the chances are you've probably done 1 training course, maybe 2. And you'll have those certificates on the wall of your office, and that's great. It gives you a really good starting point, but more and more people are starting to realize actually to learn everything they need to learn, regardless of what area of micropigmentation that you're in, you need to do multiple training courses and invest in continuing education over time. You've also got to consider the quality of the training that you've received. Not all training courses are created equal. When you look at some of the very best training courses in the market, when you look at the training offered by companies like Scalp Micro USA, by Jonathan Jarrow, by Bramwood or by John Chandler, for example, that's a very different training experience to if you've learned with somebody who doesn't have that level of pedigree or that level of experience. So you've got to think about that and think about how that's going to be perceived by your potential customers. So it's the quality of training, it's the number of training courses that you've received, and how much you've invested in ongoing education. So think about that and think about how that's going to be perceived, because that does affect, and also as well, not just specific skill training, but if you have bloodborne pathogen certificates, for example, if you've invested in additional training around micropigmentation safety, that type of thing. I know some of the guys in the UK have invested in level 4, for example. Then that is also going to affect how you are perceived by your potential customers. The third consideration is the nature of the location that you're based within. So first off, think about the city that you're in, the city or town that you're located in. The reality is that clinics in certain locations can charge more. So here in the UK, London clinics can charge more because people have got more disposable income, and customers expect to pay a little bit more because they know that businesses have higher overheads. Out in the US, the same can be said. If you're based somewhere like New York, San Francisco, Los Angeles, those cities, they do have, they are more affluent, and you can charge that a little bit more. In Canada, the same could be said of somewhere like Vancouver, Toronto. So give some consideration to that, and also think about where your clinic is situated specifically. If you're in a beautiful office in a building surrounded by medical professionals, then obviously you're going to be perceived differently than if you're based in a serviced office that doesn't necessarily specialize in aesthetic treatments, and also think about what the perception is when clients walk into your actual space. So if you have high-end Italian leather furniture, then that positions you in a different place in the market than if you have fairly basic fixtures and fittings that just tick the boxes as to what you need to operate the clinic. None of those things necessarily dictate where you are in the market or dictate your pricing, but they do play a part, so it is something that you should consider. The fourth consideration is the competitive nature of what's going on around you. Okay, so think about who else is in your neighborhood, how many competitors you have, how strong those competitors are, and what they're charging. You shouldn't be driven by what your competitors are doing necessarily. You can go your own way and you don't have to copy what they're doing, copy their pricing or whatever. But there is definitely an argument for looking at what's going on. So if you have 2 or 3 companies in your local area who are positioning themselves at the bottom end of the marketplace, they're offering very low pricing, then it's quite tempting to try and compete with them on price, when actually the best option might be to do the opposite. If there's a gap in the market at the upper end, if you live in a fairly affluent neighbourhood, but your local competitors are not charging that much money for procedures, then I would argue that there's a gap in the marketplace for a premium clinic with a beautiful location to charge premium pricing for procedures, as long as everything else within the business ties in with that premium positioning. The fifth consideration is your value adds. So every business should have value adds, things that you add to the experience over and above the minimum. So think about, for example, a guarantee. Do you offer one? What does that guarantee entail? How comprehensive is it? How long is the guarantee for? Is it an official guarantee in writing, or is it an informal guarantee over a handshake? Because that matters. Do you offer entertainment within your location for friends and family? So do you offer a flat screen TV? Do you offer Sky TV or Direct TV or whatever you have in your area? Do you help clients with accommodation? Do you provide advice about where they will, what they can do while they're in the area? Do you offer a brochure that you send to them before their procedure, giving them information about the procedure itself and about maybe even offering advice about hair loss? Do you give them aftercare products to take away with them after their treatment? So think about all of these things. And also, I guess with this, you've also got to consider, what type of business you run. So one good value add, for example, is if you are a hair transplant business primarily, then the chances are you can charge a little bit more because you're offering a medical environment versus versus a different type of environment. So there's a few things there to consider. And the last thing that you need to think about is your personal attitude towards pricing and towards market positioning. You know, your business is your baby. You put your heart and soul into it. So if you truly want to be at the upper end of the marketplace, then as long as you make sure that all of the other things within your business, the strength of your portfolio, the training that you invest in, your location, your pricing, and the value that you add to the mix, as long as all of that matches your desire to build a premium business, then you can do that. You may well take the attitude of, actually, I want to offer very competitive pricing because I want to make this procedure available to as many people as possible. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But different people have different viewpoints, and there's no right or wrong. But that's obviously going to have a bearing on how you position yourselves within the market. So that concludes today's video. It is something that you really need to consider because it drives everything about the business. You cannot have a budget location in a low affluence city, yet expect to charge premium pricing unless you have a really compelling reason as to why. And similarly, if you have a great portfolio, if you have a great location, then you should very much be aiming at the top end of the market and charging pricing that reflects that. So, there's some, like I said, I mean, there isn't really a right or wrong to this. There's a number of things to consider. If you have any thoughts on this, please comment below. Let us know your thoughts. Let us know where you position yourselves. And let us know what challenges you feel your business would experience if you try to change that positioning. But thank you for listening. Hope you found this useful. I hope it's given you some things to think about. And until next time, see you soon.